Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 133 of the Terminal City FC podcast, part of the Area 51 Sports Network. Yes, that is a new intro, actually. Big thanks to Don Andrews, the PA voice of the Vancouver Whitecaps, BC Lions, and other sports teams, for doing the intro for us. And it sounds so much better and even cooler that the guy you hear at BC Place is doing the intro for this show. So, talking all things soccer, Josh Ray again, joined alongside with Nathan Durek. Hello to everyone on the live cameras on the Area 51 Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Terminal City FC podcast Twitter account. So, no Lionel Messi, no Sergio Busquets, no Luis Suarez for Inter Miami, but they didn't need them.
Yeah, no problem either.
The Whitecaps had a huge opportunity in front of the biggest crowd of their MLS era to, not only get out of that slump, but it's also would be great for marketing. And unfortunately, the Whitecaps, the lights were too bright once again.
You know what? I don't know what it is about this year in home games. It's a complete switch from last year. But home games, we've had record attendances, right? Games that are over 24,000 on average. Then you break that record for the 50th anniversary against Austin, and then you break it again a few weeks later. Everyone seems to show up except the team.
Yeah, everyone
frustrating.
Showed. Yeah, it's just really frustrating. Like, over the years, the Whitecaps, when they do have big crowds, they tend to just bottle it. And
it's just
this game was
bright lights.
The lights were, again, too bright for the Whitecaps. And, just heading into this game, the storylines were ugly. Because on Thursday, it was reported that Messi, Suarez, and Busquets, the big three, would not be making the trip up here to Vancouver for the game against the Whitecaps.
Yeah, and I think, that was already pretty damaging to begin with. Now, the thing is I think any of us that have been following the team and also understands just the makeup of the league itself, it wasn't the biggest surprise.
No.
What really, really hurt is that apparently Inter Miami knew all this weeks beforehand. They had already planned a separate appearance for these guys at a youth tournament
involving Messi's son.
Were playing in, and then just didn't tell anyone.
Until 2 days, the Whitecaps actually reached out.
And so the one thing I will say this is there's a lot of blame to throw around if you want to throw out blame. You can blame the Whitecaps for marketing this to the nth degree and bumping up ticket prices to an astronomical number. You can do that. You can blame the league for scheduling this game in the middle of two midweek games against conference rivals for Inter Miami that are home games for Inter Miami, which means that it's 6 hours there, 6 hours back, and only barely any recovery time because they're midweek games. You can be angry at the international schedule because you've got Copa coming up in a month, and people or players kind of have that in their mindset. I don't know. You can blame geography because the trip from Miami to Vancouver is
6 hours.
It's arguably the longest domestic away game in global football, right?
Yeah.
So you can throw it all around. The one thing I will say is when the Whitecaps found out about this, within 2 hours, they had let their fans know.
Yeah. And
the thing is we can talk about a lot of and let's say it. This is not the biggest controversy in the history of the Whitecaps. There are other much worse controversies that have happened with the Whitecaps in their history. And one of the things that came out of all of that and all the hearings and the work that the Whitecaps have done since then was transparency.
Yes, and they were transparent here.
Isn't that kind of what we asked?
So, yeah, and thankfully it was 2 days.
It happened, but I like part of what they did.
Yeah, it was 2 days before the game, not the day of or less than 24 hours before, thankfully.
The scary thing is because of all this, the Whitecaps actually had to deal with some pretty scary stuff. They actually had death threats.
Yes, we were told
that
members of the staff of the Whitecaps got death threats.
Yeah, like members, like people that are on phones ticketing, people of the communication staff that are trying to, talk with people. They actually had to increase security at the National Soccer Center for practice.
Yes, and there was increased security at BC Place on
Saturday. That was going to happen regardless at the game.
Regardless of Messi, yeah.
But the fact that they had to do all this other stuff.
Yeah, and when I walked into the BC Place on Saturday, the mood, it's usually pretty cheerful.
Yeah.
But the mood felt a little tense. No, not a little. It felt very tense.
It did.
Heading into the stadium. Like, not only the Whitecap staff.
The air felt a little bit charged, like before a good Alberta thunderstorm.
Yeah, like the security staff.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell they were all nervous as hell.
But what I will say, and right now this is credit to the Southsiders, credit to Vancouver Albion, and anyone else that was involved in this, is at the very beginning of the game, the unveiling of the 50th anniversary TIFO that they had that covered the entire side of the stadium changed the atmosphere.
Yes. Actually, let me bring it up
the
here.
Atmosphere, and it actually got people on side. I found it very interesting that it was a crowd initiative or a fan initiative that got people on side. Yeah, there it is right there, right? Now, the thing is they did that at the very beginning of the game. It was the first whistle. Now, you got that. You've got fans that were able to get other fans there for you. You have a duty of care to respond. And that first half was not a response.
Yeah, and well done to everyone who made this amazing. Just seeing this from the press box, it was amazing. Look at this. Our history, our destiny, 50 years of the Whitecaps. All the players, past and present, blue and gold. Incredible display.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And we saw the Cascadia's blue and white from earlier in the season when we were playing Portland, I think it was.
Yeah, Portland.
Hey, that one worked. Whitecaps won that game. But I hope to see more because I love it.
Yeah, me too. But just the thing with the whole Messi thing, it brought out a lot of people, like a lot of angry people. It's understandable because they paid a lot of money to see this game. But again, buyer beware. There was no guarantee Messi and his friends would play in Vancouver for reasons as we stated. And you can't just buy a ticket to a sporting event to see one player, no matter how big they are. I don't care if it's Messi, LeBron James, Shohei Ohtani, whoever.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting, and there's been that sign going around of the guy who itemized the money that they spent, right?
Yeah.
I took a look at it. You would have saved money if you traveled to Miami and went to the game.
Yes. If you really want to see Messi that badly, go to Miami.
You would have traveled to Miami because the thing is prices weren't just jacked up on tickets. Prices were being jacked up downtown on hotels. Prices were being jacked up downtown in hotel lobbies for food and all that stuff. There was a map going around showing over that weekend what the cost of the average hotel room was. All of that got checked out. So you got to understand that. I hate to say it, but in a free-leaning market economy, that's what happens. It's economics 101 of understanding supply and demand curves. Now, the thing is, you are absolutely within your right to be angry. I would be angry too if I paid for those tickets. I would absolutely be angry because there is that expectation that is built in. But you have to understand this is a very real possibility, right?
Yeah.
So you can be angry, but it feels like there's no good place to direct your anger.
Right.
Because no one really looks good in this. No one really looks good.
No one does. And
including, I will say, the the people that bought the tickets.
Yeah, I mean,
because you bought it knowing full in advance all of these things could happen, and it was a very real possibility.
And let's not forget that Messi was injured last week, did not play against Orlando. And
let's also not forget that last year when Messi showed up and joined Inter Miami, he barely played 50% of their games.
Yeah, because we joined mid-season and he did suffer an injury.
No, I'm talking from when he joined to the end of the season,
last year.
Those games in between, almost half of them he didn't play.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
And I had
there's a history of this.
Yeah, I had a feeling like when he took that bad tackle in Montreal, I remember seeing like, oh my God, it's really possible that he might not play. And then people are saying, oh, it's the turf. He won't play on the turf. Turf had nothing to do with this.
He played on turf in New England. He's played
last month
in Atlanta.
He played on turf in Charlotte last year on a meaningless game.
Yeah.
He said he's fine with turf.
Yeah. Well, he actually was talking about, he's like, yeah, I actually learned on turf. That's what we had, right?
Yeah, in La Masia, they had turf.
Yeah.
So nothing to do with turf.
Yeah. In my mind, when I look at this, the biggest thing is the scheduling.
Yes, that's my biggest blame, the scheduling.
The furthest trip away, and you put it in between two conference rivals that are midweek games. Not even weekend games, where you got the 6-7 days. They're midweek games.
If they were
what
weekend
I don't understand is why does the MLS not do what other leagues in North America do, where if you're going to be on a road trip, play teams within that area. Like, why are you not coming to Vancouver, also playing Seattle?
Or Portland.
Right?
Or California, anywhere in California. The Whitecaps went on a road trip.
Worth it, right? And not only does it make sense for the team and for travel and all that stuff, it saves you money. On top of it, it's also just going to save you, spending all that, airfare and gas and all that stuff and, pollutants and, I don't know, just to me, it's common sense. But then again, I'm not the one that they hired to schedule. So
the first couple weeks ago, the Whitecaps played in LA, and where did they go next? Colorado.
Yeah.
Not too far.
Yeah.
And then to Seattle. Again, decent road trip distance.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing with that road trip is you go, you don't have to come back home. You kind of come part way home. You come back, and then Seattle's just a quick jaunt, right?
So let's say Miami, it was Vancouver, and then they played a midweek game in Seattle. They could even just take the bus.
Yeah.
To Seattle.
I mean, it just makes sense. Throw them all in air.
Or better yet, once this game could have been scheduled like in March or April when they only played once in a week, and they have time to rest after traveling.
Yeah. I mean, there's
but that makes too much sense.
Other things that could have been taken into consideration that doesn't seem like it was. What I find funny is how much this game was pumped by MLS during the game, even to the point of when Whitecaps finally did score a goal, they spelled the goal scorer's name wrong.
Yeah, Ryan Gale instead of Ryan Gauld, and forget Rom Gauld from JJ Adams. Yep. Ryan Gale is the new thing now.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, let's get. We talked about what kind of led up into this game. It sucks.
Let's talk
about the game itself.
The game itself. So
as much as we want to.
Yeah, the Whitecaps, they had moments of promise, moments of maybe they can score here. Like they started the game pretty well, moving the ball well, but again weren't threatening, especially in that final third. And this whole game, I said to Alex Gonge-Ruzik in the press box, it felt like watching a Canucks power play. All that passing, no shots.
And nothing to show for it, right?
Yeah.
It was a nice change to previous matches where the Whitecaps couldn't even string together a pass, right?
Yes.
In particular, go back to LAFC, where, it didn't seem like they actually hit a pass until the second half. But we've talked about that with the Whitecaps for a while, even going back to games where it's Colorado or Seattle, where defensively sound, for the most part, there's the structure, but going forward, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
For that final touch or that final ball into it. You see a lot of players that And I actually brought this up with Ali Ahmed in the press conference. Is it seems like a lot of players are going for the perfect move rather than just the number of good moves, right?
Yeah,
they're looking for that perfect thing, that beautiful thing, that thing that's going to get noticed, rather than just
the simple thing
that is the right play and gives you options, right?
Right, and
it's a problem of overthinking. And I'm wondering if it's because they're given almost too much license in that attacking third, right?
Yeah, a big example, like early in the first half or midway in the first half, Alexander Shoff had space, he had time, but he tried to pass it instead of shooting Andre Callender.
Yeah.
And they did not have a single shot on Callender until the second half.
No, they didn't test Callender. You know what? And it's interesting you bring up Shoff, because in that first half, you notice there was not, I mean, I wouldn't call it argument, but there was somewhat animated discussion between Schopf and Picot on the left. And it was like the two players couldn't figure out
where to go
play with one another. And the interesting thing was talking with Vanny after that game is for him, the culprit was Picot.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing, going back and rewatching the game, you see it. You see, and don't get me wrong, Fafa had a much better second half. He was the catalyst of that second half. It was him going down that also brought the penalty. He hit the post. I mean, he was all over the place. But the first half was a very poor half. And with Fafa, we know at the very beginning of the season, it took him about 4 matches to actually really, really get into the starting 11 and make a difference. And Sartini kind of called him out a little bit and said it's like it took him a little bit of time to figure out how to play within our system. And that makes sense. We were looking at Fafa before the season even started, when they first signed him, thinking, okay, interesting player, but how does this guy fit?
Yeah. Right? How does he play up front? Does he play in the midfield? Does he play wing back?
Right. It seemed like a very odd signing.
Yeah.
Then he found a home. It started going good. I think he scored 3 games in a row.
Yes, he did.
And then he got injured. Right.
Right.
Innocuous injury, back spasm, just, I hate to say it can happen to the best of us. And that seemed to throw him off, because coming back, it took him time to figure out how to get back in here again. That momentum was gone. I hope that it's coming back. We've started to see flashes of it, but we're not seeing it over a consistent period of time. I like what he can bring when he's contributing to the team and not himself.
Yeah, we saw that in the second half.
Right?
Where he was just all over the place, trying to get around the Miami defenders, even nutmeg the guy.
Yeah.
And if only Brian White was fully paying attention in the box, it would have been a beautiful assist.
When Fafa is cutting in and he gives himself the option to either shoot, especially when he's playing on the left and he can shoot off his right, or if he can cross, he is so good on 1v1s that once he gets by the defender, he gives himself options, right?
Yeah.
It's not just one thing with him. And that, I think, is very dangerous and very positive for the Whitecaps. Dangerous for other teams, I should say.
Yeah,
that's why he brought it back to that point when it was after the Whitecaps' 4th game, and it was like the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, where we started to see what he could do on a consistent basis. We're not there yet. I'm hoping it's coming back, but he was one of the players we saw a noted improvement from.
Yeah, because since he came back from the injury, he, as you mentioned, it hasn't been the same dynamic player. But in that second half against Miami, he was, I think, the best player on the pitch for the Whitecaps.
Yeah, second half, he was the one that was creating not only his own chances, but chances for other players as well.
Yeah, I mean, the roof could have blown off if his diving header went in. I think Callender, watching it back, Callender got a little touch on it too.
I had Edgar from Nags News message me about that, and he was just, I think he was in shock as well.
Yeah, the entire stadium was in shock.
Right? Like it was one of those ones where if you're on the opposite side of the pitch of the shot, you think it has gone in.
I thought it did too.
Right?
In the press box.
I know. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I know. I think this is the second time Pico missed a clear diving header this season.
You know what? He's getting himself into those positions to do it in the first place, and that's commendable. And I mean, I'm not going to be the first guy to understand whether controlling a header while you're, prone and
it's
in
hard.
the air is possible.
I've tried doing it.
That doesn't look easy. So the fact that he's doing it and the ball's not going here, there, and everywhere, yeah, you feel that it's going to happen. You just wish it did now. We need to talk about Matias Laborda.
Because he got absolutely cooked alive by Robert Taylor.
Yeah.
In both the goals.
Yeah.
First one.
This is reminiscent of that LAFC game when he was getting cooked by Bouanga.
Yeah.
Off 2 of the 3 goals there.
Like Jordi Alba makes the pass. Like Laborda just absolutely gets skinned by Taylor, and Taylor beats Yoe Takaoka. Clean finish. Second one, Taylor just skins him again, and then he finds Leo Campagna in the box.
It was interesting. I was reading the thoughts off, other guys good to follow. Third sub, Alex Gange-Ruzic,
and Sam Rowan.
They were talking about Laborda. And one of the things they said interesting is that Laborda is good when he gets to be aggressive.
Yes.
Laborda is good when he is able to challenge, move further up the pitch, and basically not almost be defensive at that at the halfway line, right? Where right now, because it is all zonal, because it's playing the space and not the man, you're kind of forced to let the man come to you. And Laborda struggles with that. He struggles when he is not able to be on the front foot. I'm not saying that he's a bad defender. I'm saying he might not be the right defender for Sartini.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that happen on numerous occasions.
Because he, one-on-ones, not just this last game, but throughout his entire time with the Whitecaps.
And the thing is once he gets cooked, all you have left back there is your goalkeeper and your middle center back in Veselinovic. And while they're in their positions, they can't react to close down that space before a Bouanga or a Taylor can either cut in for a shot or pass to either the one or two guys that are entering in the box from above. Laborda getting skinned like he does is not, and because of how late it happens with zonal marking, it's not letting anyone else have a chance to react. And at that point, you either need a world-class save, which in the last couple of games we actually have seen from Takaoka. I mean, that I'll go back to that LAFC game. Yes, it ended up 3-0, but for the first 15 minutes, he stood.
He was the only one that showed up in that game.
5 absolute saves. You can't expect that over 90 minutes. You need other people to wake up at that point.
I think he needs a reset. I mean, that means putting him on the bench, just to recharge himself.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting test. I thought it was a very worrying test when in the Canadian Championship, he was played centrally. I didn't see that as a good move. And in the end, I don't think it was, but they're trying things with him. I believe in extended time on the bench. I believe Utvik is better for having the patience that a Sartini center back needs, especially a wide center back. Also, I want to see what Bilal can do.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? We haven't seen him at all.
Yeah, not at all.
That if you're getting late in the game and you need a change, I want to see what he can do. You signed him. I want to see him. We're a third of the season done already, and he hasn't played.
Yeah, and Utvik is a lot better at one-on-one defending. And I was surprised to not see him start against Miami because I thought he would have done better. I'm not saying, he would have easily shut down Robert Taylor. No.
I believe he
probably would have done better. Yeah. Utvik has been the most consistent Whitecaps defender this season.
Because what would have happened is you would have seen him come on the left. You would have put Blackman on the right. I'd be interested to see if Blackman is able to not get, skinned like that either, but it would have been different.
Yeah. And I just yeah. Again, he needs a reset, Matias Laborda, because not just last game, like last month or so, he is
Yep.
just been in poor form.
And again, over this last month, he's not the only one. He's not the only one.
Yeah.
I've been wondering where Ali Ahmed has gone.
Yeah. He hasn't been like he's not been terrible, but he hasn't been.
He hasn't wowed you.
Well, yeah, like he did early.
And there have been moments when he's gotten he's let his men go as well, right?
Yeah.
I've been frustrated with Pedro Vite. Again, I don't know if Pedro Vite is being used in the best way for Pedro Vite.
Yeah,
trying to play him so far back. Like you take a look at his creation numbers, they're nowhere near what he was last year.
Because he's being held in the shackles of trying to be a number 8. Well, he is a number 8, but
you can be a playmaker from back there.
Yeah.
Pablo Morales
was that.
Right? Yep. He was able to do it. But there's a maturity required of a player that's going to do that. I mean, you want to go really far back. Take a look at the later years of someone like Beckham, right? Where Beckham started playing further and further and further back because his legs couldn't do runs anymore, but he can ping that pass, right?
Right.
He was still creating from where he was back then. We haven't seen that from Pedro Vite because I just don't know if that's the makeup of the player.
Like he's just not creating.
No. Which, unfortunately, what happens then is if you can't do that through the middle, your avenue is only to go out to the flanks.
Yeah.
Use your speed and cross balls in, right? And you become a little bit one note by doing that, right?
Right. And, also props to Ali Ahmed. He did well against Jordi Alba, but his crosses just couldn't find anyone. And he could have done better in the final third as well. Even he could have admitted that in the post-match presser.
Vanny was on what was it, Extra Time, talking with Andrew Wiebe about a week ago, and they were talking about the upcoming transfer window and the fact that the Whitecaps have either that DP or U22 spot available. What are they thinking of doing? Are there things look? And he wasn't really giving a lot away. But the one thing he did say is that if they were looking at using that, they would look more at a U22 instead of a DP. And that does seem to fit the mold of the Whitecaps of developing younger players into what it is you want. I'm not going to sit here and decide whether or not that's the right or wrong way to do it. If you find the right player, you find the right player. If they're a U22 player, go after it. But the one thing you do know when it comes to Axel Schuster and when he's looking at the higher level players is they have their short list in mind and they're patient to almost an unbearable degree. It takes them time to woo players.
It took them a long time to get Ryan Gauld.
They were in conversations with Ryan Gauld. It was almost a year, right?
Yeah,
so my hope is that they've been having these conversations for a while. My hope is that these conversations have been going on with whoever is on their short list for a good 8 months, right?
Yeah.
When it comes time to the transfer window this summer, they can snap and enact.
Yeah, it took over a year to get Sam Adekugbe back home.
Yeah,
even Sam Adekugbe mentioned, and I hope that they're having conversations or have had conversations with numerous targets for this summer. Again, we talked about endlessly what they need.
Yeah.
But this game, just another frustrating, disappointing performance from the Whitecaps. And the big guns, Ryan Gauld, Brian White, haven't been good enough this past month. Yes, Gauld got the penalty, the goal.
In the first half, Brian White had, I think it was just
not getting service
touches. Yohei Takioka had more touches than Brian White.
And
you don't want your goalkeeper having more touches than your striker.
Yeah. And Brian White on that second goal, he tried to pass back, and then Miami went back the other way.
Yeah.
And just a damning stat. 3,000 or whatever minutes over a month now since the Whitecaps scored a goal from open play in MLS play, and both the goals they scored this month were Ryan goal penalties.
Yeah. Again, we've talked about it. Defensively, they can play their game. They can do it when they're doing it right. When you have one guy out and he's not marking the space, it falls apart.
It all falls apart. That's the problem with zonal marking.
But going forward, it's I don't know if there's just a crisis of faith or just some other blockage, but it is not happening right now, and it's not happening for a number of players.
Yeah, Brian White, Ryan Gauld included, and these are your game-changing players.
Yep.
And even I'm sure they'll admit, it's not good enough. It's not good enough from pretty much the entire team.
And the thing is especially if we're going to talk about those two players, the intensity, the will hasn't left them. But it's once that frustration sets in, you start blocking yourself, right?
Right. And I'm gonna just bring up something here.
Yeah.
Some stats. I mean, this was during the game, but I think the stats haven't changed much at all. This tweet from user Pender. I mean, look at this. Or if you're listening to the podcast, like 5 big chances in like a month,
and a very busy month when you have midweek games too. So that's like less than a big chance a game.
Yeah, it didn't feel like the Whitecaps had a big chance until late in the second half.
Yeah,
against Miami.
Yeah, that XG is also pretty damning as well.
Yeah, and I said in my article just dissecting the struggles of the Whitecaps. I'll just bring it up here actually. 168 shots on target, 21st in the league. This is the whole.
Yeah.
Shot out. That's the type of 168 shots. Only 55 have hit the target, also 21st. 32.7%, 20th in the league, tied with Cincinnati and Philadelphia Union.
And the thing is you there's 34, 35 teams in the league. It feels like 115.
Yeah.
21st is not great. It's not the worst of the worst.
You're still in the bottom tier.
Yeah, you're like a tier above the very bottom.
Yeah.
Right? You're below the halfway line, and that's not where you want to be.
You're mid.
Yeah.
As they say.
Yeah.
That's the problem with
as the kids say.
They're not just not scoring, they're not creating any chances.
Yeah.
And Vanni Sartini talked about after the game that there needs to be adjustments. They need a shock. They need more confidence.
And this is one thing I like, because this is a different Sartini than last year or especially a couple years ago, where there would have been a stubbornness to stay in the system and have players fight through it, rather than realize you need to adapt in order to help your players. I'm happy that there is being more flexibility from Sartini. It's something that is very noticeable. We still have to wait to see if it's going to pay off. We don't know what those changes are going to be yet. We do know that there are absolute things that will never change. Defensive stability, back three, marking the space, or being zonal. Those three things will never change in Sartini's system. That's what everything is built from. Now, what we might see, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Personnel changes, I would say, like Laborda, as mentioned.
It's got to be more than just personnel changes, though. There needs to be a tactical shift as well.
Like he talked about, he hinted at Ryan Gauld as an 8 or out wide. Yeah. Off of Pico up front, because Pico has played up there before with other teams in MLS. Yeah. At this point, why not?
Yeah.
Maybe he goes with a front 2 like he did last year.
Yeah, with one behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the holding midfielder, which was usually.
I find those three at the beginning. We've got like the 2 10s and the 9, but by the time, like, once the game goes, those kind of 3 are kind of like rotating a little bit
around.
Yeah, like they're not really married to their position or their system. There's a lot of fluidity between on those top three. So if you want to go with two at the top, one in the back, to me, I almost don't really see a change. The only change you'll see is defensively, is where they line up defensively, because defensively, everyone comes back to that rigid position.
Right.
So I don't know if that's going to be the big change you want going, into the attack.
But he hinted at Fafa up front, and given his speed and his ability to win one-on-ones, I would be open to seeing that.
I'd be open to seeing that too, because it also places him more centrally.
Yeah, and I think that is his natural position.
The other thing I wonder is if you're looking for a tweak, move Vite up.
Yes.
Move Vite, at least play him higher up as a 6. Let Kubas be Kubas and cover that whole back area. Give Vite an ability, if Kubas can play a short pass, or other players can play the short pass to Vite, if he's 10 yards already up the pitch, well, that gives him a bit more license to really distribute that ball, right?
Yeah,
it's not just looking to the sides.
He doesn't have to worry too much about tracking back and being defensive. Just let him pass the ball and be creative.
Let him be a part of the defense when you're back in your half. But going forward, just say, look, you got Kubas behind you. You trust him. Get up.
Yeah, and another option I've been seeing: move Ali Ahmed back into the midfield. If you want to keep the same formation, that would work.
Yeah.
That's also something I'm very open to, because given his abilities, and that's pretty much where he's naturally been playing pretty much most of his career. Definitely, especially when you have Kubas next to him.
Yeah, no, that's something that would be interesting to try too. I want to see something more than just switching the pieces into an existing system. I want to change to the system itself.
But that's not really gonna.
A little bit. He's alluded to it a little bit of that.
They're not going to stray away from their identity.
No, they're not going to stray away from those 3 underlying principles. But if you're changing just a little bit, that might be the shock that Sartini is talking about, right?
Right, and I would not be surprised if we get a formation change, because remember last year?
That's what I'm saying.
The Christmas tree, Vanny tried it, had his moments, but it didn't really work. And then before the LAFC game, he went with that wing back 3-1,
wing back to the back
2, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And maybe he goes
from there. They never left a back 3.
Maybe he goes back to the Christmas tree tonight against SKC. You never know.
I would be very surprised, because I think that would get rid of one of those underlying principles of playing with a back 3. I think that's so ingrained into what he wants to do, especially because when he talked at the beginning of the season about what the tactical philosophy is, defensively, there's basically one thing. It's going forward that they want to have all these different options. And defensively, I think if you start changing back 3 to a 4, you throw out of whack the whole concept of zonal marking, because you've changed what the zones are because you have extra players there. Yeah, I think that might almost be a bridge too far for the players. But I mean, the thing is at this point, who knows?
Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if he tries that or goes to a 4-3-3. And he also stated, no, we're not going to a 4-4-2 with long balls. So that's not happening.
Well, yeah, I know this isn't 1960s England, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting to see what changes, but it's clear that things need to change on the pitch for the Whitecaps, because things have not been looking good for the last month, and this team has been one of the worst in MLS over the past month, because I said in my article, relative form, 4th worst in the league.
So here's the thing. We got 2 games coming up. One of them is tonight away to Sporting KC. If you want to change the narrative, this is a
because SKC have
won 2 games out of 14.
Yeah, I'm just let's bring up the standings here. Share screen. So here's SKC,
Yeah.
They're at the tied with San Jose at the bottom, 2-5-7. Just have not been in the best form apparently.
No.
Just
There's
looking at
been a
their
lot of
last few.
problems there.
Loss. Yeah, 4 straight losses. 5 actually.
Yeah. Now the one thing with Sporting Kansas City is they are. You want to talk about a team that is unbelievably pragmatic in its approach? That's them. They're not going to fire Vermees.
He's been there forever.
He's been there
Vermees
forever.
might as well
He's the
just
longest
die
standing coach right now, right? It feels like he's been there, it feels like a decade.
Over a decade now, I think.
Over a decade, yeah. So you got to think, I mean, this is an opportunity right here. Now, we've said that before. This game's an opportunity. This game's an opportunity. It hasn't taken it. You know what? No. Maybe you get away from your fans. I don't know. Maybe BC Place is feeling a little bit claustrophobic right now. Maybe this is what they need just to give themselves a reset. But Sporting KC, for me, it kind of feels like a bit of a must-win.
Yeah, because you're replacing a team that lost 5 straight.
Yes.
And their morale is even lower than the Whitecaps right now.
It is, right? It's and understandably so. Now, so for me, that's what you need to do. I
mean, still stop. Like Children's Mercy Park, the Whitecaps, I think they've only won there like once in the last like 6-7 years or more than that, and that was like 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, that's good. Previously, I mean, away wins were very scarce to begin with.
Yeah, but I mean, for them, like,
yeah,
that stadium has been one of their house of horrors.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, 2 conference rivals this week: Sporting KC on the weekend, Colorado, and Colorado is sitting right now, I think, only 3 points above the Whitecaps. Yeah, they're sitting 3 points above the Whitecaps, but they played 1 extra game.
So the Whitecaps have the game in hand, of course.
You take a look at these 2 games. Arguably, at the end of this week,
must wins.
Vancouver could either fall out of the playoff race entirely, or they could be in the top 4.
Yeah, and they're in 7th right now. And if the season ended today, they'd have the final playoff spot.
They would.
So
you wouldn't have to worry about the play-in. So there's that, right?
Yeah, but the bar, as we've mentioned many times on this show, has been raised here in Vancouver, and like, no more of this. Okay, we'll just make the playoffs and call it a day. Let's finish top 4, top 5, and go deep.
I think, yeah. I mean, there's a few things of what's a successful season. A successful season is getting to the final of the Canadian Championship. Yes, I want to win.
Successful season is winning it. You have to win it.
Only one team can win it, and once you get to the final, it's 90 minutes that can kind of go here or there. I'm going to be disappointed if they don't win, but it's not as damning to me.
I agree.
In the regular season, I want top 4. I'll settle for a top 6, but what I want to see is progress in the playoffs themselves.
Yes, but before we get to there, they need to. There's still like half the season left.
I know they still got to get there. The League's Cup, I don't care. Play the games. I don't care. It's the League's Cup.
And of course, they're out of the Champions Cup, which the final is this Saturday, same day as the UCL final.
Go Columbus!
Was it Columbus and Monterrey or something?
That sounds right.
Pachuca. They beat Monterrey in the semifinal. So anyway, our poll question. Let me bring it up here because when team starts losing and getting in a bad run of form, it always falls on the coach because that's the way sports work. So yeah, it should say, is Vanni Sartini on the hot seat? 37 votes. 45.9% say yes. 54.1% say no. And it's close. It is close.
I'm not surprised by this.
Not surprised.
I'm not surprised. And that's what 37 votes. Okay, so a number of people have had their opportunities.
For me, I'll say that.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
I'll say yes, but the seat is sizzling. It's just starting to sizzle. It's not like burning up, but it's starting to get hot.
That's kind of what I was about to say. I was in different words. I was going to say, yeah, it's like he's adjacent to it.
But if this form continues, it'll get hotter and hotter. Yeah. And I do think, I mean, I'm not like, so it's just speculation. I do think he'll see the end of the season at least, no matter what happens.
I do as well.
I don't see them unless things go absolutely.
They go on a 10-game losing streak. Things are going to change a lot earlier. But yes, I think he's got this season, especially because he's also just signed a brand new contract, right?
Right.
The reason why I don't think he's on the hot seat yet is because if you take a look at just the numbers themselves compared to last season,
I think
in terms of where they are, goals for, against, all that stuff, kind of across the board, they're roughly exactly where they were last season.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't look at the numbers.
Now, the thing is to me, that's not good. That's not, you want to always
not good enough.
But they haven't gotten worse. If you want to find a silver lining everywhere, like, congratulations, you're not worse than you were. They know they need to work. I think no one puts more pressure on them than themselves.
Yeah.
But I want to see a market improvement. I don't think he's on the hot seat yet, but he can see it right beside him.
Yeah, and Vanny has said that he's always under pressure. So this is nothing new for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Edgar from News Across the Galaxy says not yet. That's the rest of the season to ride the ship. Yes, I agree. If the Whitecaps miss the playoffs, he's gone.
Yeah. Making the playoffs is a bare minimum. Making the playoffs is the bare minimum. And even for me, like I said, I want to see them at least advance
past the first round. Even the second, if you can.
Oh, I want them to win the whole damn thing.
Oh, man, who doesn't want them to win the whole damn thing?
Little pieces here and there. All right? That's what I always said. That's the difference between a North American fan and a European soccer fan. A European soccer fan will take a look at their team. They'll assess and like, oh, yeah, if we finish in the top 10, that's a good season. Or if we finish in top 4, that's a good season. North American fan, doesn't matter where your team is, we're going to win.
Yeah, let's win the lot.
We're going to win the whole thing, all right? Doesn't matter if we're like bottom of the thing. Nope, win or nothing.
I mean, but if talking Vanny out, like, who are you going to replace him with? Like D'Agostino as interim? I mean,
that's just it. Like other players on the hot seat or other managers on the hot seat. You want Caleb Porter here?
Nah. Look, right? I don't know. He's on the hot seat. Like, his seat is
what about on fire in Montreal, right?
Yeah, him too. I mean, let's face it, all the Canadian teams aren't doing well.
No, John Herman's doing pretty darn good with Toronto right now. Toronto
that was a crazy game.
Yeah.
Them in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I feel bad for Courtois in Montreal. I feel that he's been given absolutely nothing and forced to do everything.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. D'Agostino is interim. He had a good record, but
that's not a solution, though.
That's not a solution. Like, if you want to sack Vanny, like, you got to get an upgrade.
Yeah, and right now it's not there.
Yeah, who are you bringing in?
Or do you look elsewhere and do something really crazy, going and give, I don't know, David Moyes a call?
Or Frank Lampard? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, no.
You might as well put the final nail on the coffin right there.
Yeah. Maybe he's waiting for the NYC job to be available.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, Sporting KC tonight. I believe it's at 5:30 our time.
Yeah, it is. And then Colorado on Saturday at his place. And like the guys like Polito and Johnny Russell always seem to find ways to terrorize the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
We've seen it for years. So we got to keep those two in check.
Absolutely. All right, should we move on?
Yeah. That's the Whitecaps So after York fired Martin Nash, it seems all signs are pointing to Benjamin Mora to be rumored their new head coach.
And we talked about this last week that with brand new owners from Mexico, they're going to be looking at a Mexican manager. Where's Benjamin Mora? Where's his most recent job? I mean, heck, where's all of his jobs? He's just coming from Atlas.
In Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's reported by David Medrano. I believe he's a Mexican journalist. And I mean, it's kind of a big name in Mexico. And these Mexican owners seem pretty ambitious. So I know nothing about his tactics. So why not, right? Maybe he gets York
we'll
back
have
on
to
the
wait
right
to see, right? He's an interesting guy. He's had an interesting managerial career with a number of different clubs in Mexico and then also in Malaysia with Johar Daul. But most recently with Atlas, manager there. And seems like all signs pointing to heading up to York. So,
Yeah, could he be the guy to take York from a middling team to one of the CPL elites? We'll see.
I think this is the beginning. I think it's going to take any manager.
It's going to take time.
It takes time to make the team in their own image, but this does speak to the ambition of the new owners.
And I believe the owners have plans for other stuff. I think
and let's be honest, this is something York needed, right?
Yeah. So these guys are going all in with York. And closer to home, the BC Derby, Sailor Sea Derby, Lang Lang Derby, whatever you want to call it, happened on Saturday before. Not people who had tickets to the Whitecaps game showed up, so Willoughby Park didn't look like a Queen concert, fortunately.
No, unfortunately. They had a decent number. I think they still had it.
It was a good game, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Pacific with a penalty early, but Vancouver just managed to press on. And Moses Dyer again, seems like every time I watch VFC, he scores.
Yeah.
To tie the game. And then the second goal, I have no idea what Pacific were thinking with their playing out from the back. So careless from Gazdov and the defenders.
Yeah.
Let's just slowly pass it back. Oh, no, we gave it away to Vasco Fry, and he scores.
Former Whitecap.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? What I really like is that this BC Derby means something right now. These are the two teams that are second and third in the CPL. They're very, very close to one another. There's a heightened sense of what this derby means.
Yes. And with both teams doing pretty well this season.
Yeah.
It's good to see for a local BC soccer. And for Pacific, I've talked about how good defensively sound they've been all season. It just went out the window against Vancouver. And I have a feeling losing Ali Ndom to a season-ending injury.
Yeah, that is a horrible one.
Like that guy, I think he was the heartbeat.
Horrible loss for the team.
Yeah, it seems like he was the heartbeat of that defensive structure for Pacific.
Yeah, that is a very, very big loss to try and find an in-house replacement for.
Yeah, and in that game, from what I didn't see much of it because I was traveling to BC Place. It looked tight. It looked kind of even, though Pacific had more shots but weren't clinical. But Vancouver's, both their shots on target were goals.
Yeah.
And props to Callum Irving, too, for making some big saves against Pacific. And I really like watching the Dyer Alejandro Diaz connection. Like, Vancouver's got their own dynamic duo.
Yeah. Which, credits to Vancouver, credit to their coaching staff for taking an expansion side and building them to what they are in their sophomore season, because this feels like they've become a very solid team very quickly, especially after last year, which was kind of very.
Last year was expected because they're an expansion team.
Yeah, it is, but this is a very quick turnaround for them, and it's really, really nice.
Yeah, and it's good to see the boys out in Langley doing pretty well. So
I mean, you take a look at it right away already. They're only 7 matches into their season, and they've got half as many wins as they had last year.
yes, and
not bad.
Yeah, they're like what, third? Let me just actually bring up the table here. Second
Pacific
behind.
Atletico, Ottawa. I mean, with all the money they spent, you kind of expected they're going to be where they are.
Yeah,
they haven't even lost yet, right?
I mean that. Let's look at the CPL standings for.
I mean, they're absolutely dominant.
Here.
They're barely. They're letting in a goal almost once every second game.
I mean, oh my God, Halifax still hasn't won a game.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, you got to wonder
on the East Coast.
What's going to happen.
And look at Cavalry's form. Win, draws. It makes the Whitecaps loss to them hurt even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the CPL. And let's move over to some Canadian roster news because rosters have dropped.
Yeah, so let's start with the women's team.
Yep, she's dropped her squad for the send-off series in preparation for the Paris. Just trying to find it here.
It's decent. It's a good squad. My big surprise is that there's no Alidu. I think Alidu is a big omission, especially since she's had a really good season since joining Benfica. I mean, Benfica just won the league, and she was a part of that. She had, I think, 6 goals in 18 matches. Great, coming in from where she plays in the midfield. I thought that was the big kind of glaring omission in my mind.
Yeah, but of course there are names you expect to see on here. Nice to see Olivia Smith. Because apparently she's having a big money move from Sporting to Juventus.
Yep. Grosso looks like is going to be leaving Juventus, going the other way. Looks like she's coming closer to home to the NWSL somewhere, and leaving on a free, I believe.
Wow. I mean, she's a key player.
I believe that was more of a personal decision to be closer to family and whatnot.
Which makes total sense.
I'm always happy to see Chloe Lacasse. I love watching Chloe. I wish she played for a better domestic team, but that's my own personal biases.
Yeah, we got some new names on here. Gabrielle Carl, Sabrina D'Angelo, Lyciane Prolu also. So a bit of new and a bit of what you expect from Bev Friesman.
Yeah, you're gonna have your Veins, your Prince. They're there. Quinn, not a part of the lineup. They
still
are injured, I believe. Yeah, so makes sense there. And that's
they are still injured. Sorry.
Yeah.
And of course, I've been talking about that we should really watch Simio Ujo, especially in these. Just someone that looks very promising, and when she had the call-ups, she showed a lot of promise.
She did. Yeah, I agree with you. I think she's a young up-and-coming player. Not even up-and-coming. She's arrived.
Oh, yeah. She has arrived. And she's only going to get better. So,
yeah.
And Jesse Marsh has revealed as Canada head coach, and he has selected the roster for the friendlies against the Netherlands and France. Some pleasant surprises and some eyebrow raisers. Nice, really deserved for Theo Bair and Moise Bombito.
They've had I also thought Zator was a good one, especially after his season. I believe it was with Poland? In Poland.
And former Cavalry player, by the way.
Call up for Bordeaux goalkeeper Gregor Swiderski. So
what team does he play for again?
Bordeaux.
Yeah,
in France.
Oh yeah, so he gets to play in his home or just be in his home stadium.
I guess so. Right. So nice. The one thing I thought was interesting, overall, skewed towards a bit of a younger lineup. He does bring in Junior Hoylett, but he was talking about that he's got a very specific role for Hoylett. Also very, very impressed with what he's done with was Aberdeen, where he is.
Yep.
So
he's doing well.
I'm really interested to see what is this role you got. I'm curious because I like the fact that you have a bit of a veteran leadership there, but I want to see what this is. So I'm interested to see how he's going to be deployed.
How Richie Larea does, because he's just coming off an injury. I don't think he's 100% fit yet.
Yeah, I get it. He's a tough guy to leave out, even if you don't really have a body of work over the past little while to
he's a key part of this team.
But yeah, he's definitely a part of this team.
An omission. Ali Ahmed is not on this roster.
Yeah.
And but Jesse Marsh did say in his press conference that he's a player he will look at in the future, so he didn't rule him out for Copa.
Yeah. Marsh also did talk about looking at the CPL. He said a number of players have been looking out. He also made the remark that he needs to get out to see some CPL matches in person. So that's nice to see as well.
Yeah, maybe if you're watching a game in Langley, you'll see Jesse Marsh there. You never know.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Yeah, and
Marsh at Willoughby.
A name that I thought was kind of surprising was Jason Russell Rowe.
Yeah.
Yet, given what he brings, but again, like Ahmed, he's probably going to be seen in the future.
I think there's a number of players that you can take a look at this lineup and go, you haven't really had the greatest of run-ins into this tournament. You could throw Samuel Payet in there. You could throw in Brim. But
Tom
at a
McGill from
point,
Brighton.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's also just saying these are friendlies. I know it's a lead up to a big cup, but a brand new coach needs to see players and needs to understand how they're going to work when he's working with them one-on-one. I'm taking a look at this. This is a solid roster with a few surprises, but I'm wondering if those surprises are more for like I want to see you step up.
Yeah, I think Marsh is giving these young guys an audition. That's what those friendlies are.
Which is fine by me. These are always going to be very tough friendlies to begin with. Netherlands and France. We're talking about two of the biggest in national sides in the world. So
yeah.
So that's one heck of a debut.
Yeah, and Marsh is also just to see what we're going to see what he has as a coach in these two games.
Absolutely.
So the 6th in Rotterdam and the 9th in Bordeaux. So let's see what Canada can do with this roster.
Absolutely. I think we need to talk about big news in Canada. We've got a brand new league that we've talked about for a while, but we now have a name. Yeah. So Project 8 is no more. They are now known as the Northern Super League. We have the club the league unveiled on Tuesday, along with the 2 final cities that are going to make up the 6 teams. We already knew about Vancouver and Calgary. They were the first 2 founders. We knew about Toronto. We knew about Halifax. We now have Montreal and Ottawa. And Montreal, I think, is a very big one because it feels like a Canadian league once you have kind of that coast-to-coast feel.
And you got the capital also.
And you got the capital. Yeah.
You need the capital.
Yeah. I'll still say I was really hoping that they would begin the league with 8. I'll take 6.
6 is a start.
Yep.
This is just the beginning. So the league will grow. So other details also that we've learned.
A lot of this was put out, and we should credit this to La Presse in Montreal when Montreal.
Let me I keep bringing it up. You have their what's their Twitter?
I don't know. But the details that we know so far is there's going to be a salary cap in the league of about 1.5 million, but there's going to be a player minimum salary of about 50,000, which makes sense. That's good.
That's good. They need their
rosters are going to be between 20 and 25 players, 7 international spots, 25 match season. So basically, it looks like each team's going to play each other about 5 times.
I mean, what if you're a small league?
Yeah, it's going to lead into a playoff, which has a semifinal and a final format. So it basically means 4 out of your 6 teams are going to make the playoff, which, I mean, I don't know how else you do it. You kind of have to, but
makes sense for a small league.
Yeah, exactly. Season's going to run April to November. So April of next year. Less than a year away is your countdown.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I will have credentials for Vancouver.
Absolutely.
Because why the hell not, right?
Yep.
And
now
I just want to see this league grow.
We have no information on club rosters. We have no information on stadiums. We have no information on a lot of these things. Give it time, right? I mean, half the teams don't even actually have team names yet. So it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more information now that we have the league structure in place. It's wait and see and be excited.
Yeah, so we have the Whitecaps, Calgary Foothills, AFC Toronto, Atlanta Women's FC, and Montreal Ottawa.
Yep.
And I'm just also reading here from Northern Tribune that for broadcasting, Diana Matheson is telling TSN that the league will deploy a similar strategy to what the PWHL has done, investing in the production distribution of variety Canadian broadcasters. Great. They're on a big network. They get more exposure. And apparently broadcasting rights info will be announced soon as next week.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
We don't know who is going to be broadcasting them yet.
Yeah, but it looks like, as what Northern Tribune's reporting, it's TSN.
That means I got to get TSN again.
Yeah, luckily I haven't. I barely watch it nowadays, but why not?
Well, that's why I got rid of it, because I was like, you don't show anything I watch. Yeah, unfortunately, they're also going to be. They have the Copa and they have the Euros this summer, so
that's that.
There is that, right? All right, let's go across the pond. We got a season that's done, but that doesn't mean football's done.
Yeah, so I found their new manager, according to Fabrizio Romano, and that is Enzo Maresca, the Leicester City manager, or not manager, head coach rather. Knowing these owners. Oh boy, 5-year contract for Maresca.
I know, I saw that.
Did they learn nothing from Graham Potter? And, okay, let me get this out of the way first. I am backing Maresca. I want to see him succeed. The fans should do the same. And if it all blows up and goes wrong, don't blame Maresca. Blame Igbali with Stanley and Stewart for hiring him in the first place. Because, I mean, as much as Graham Potter was hated, it was clear he was put in a tough position. Maresca is being put in a similar position. And the pros for Maresca are his tactics. They fit what the club want. Possession football. He brings high-pressing football, inverted fullbacks, kind of like what Posh did to Cucurella. He has emphasizes a slow, gradual build-up, quick passes, uses 4-3-3, 4-3-2-1. But when they don't have the ball, they drop back into a 4-4-2 and try to get the ball quickly and find areas to create space and to make use of the limited space that they are given. And I highly recommend, if you're interested, the Coach's Voice YouTube channel, 12-minute video on Maresca pretty much explaining his philosophy. And the cons. He has barely any experience. And as I said last week, this club's standards has fallen so hard that one good season in the championship is good enough to be Chelsea manager. Leicester, we did win the championship, but they nearly blew a 17-point lead. Yeah. And before Leicester, Maresca did manage Serie B's Parma, but only lasted like 4 months. But he has experience as an assistant under another bald manager, Pep Guardiola, and has worked with Cole Palmer and Romeo Lavia as part of Man City's development squad and won PL2 with them. So that's that. He got tutelage from arguably the best manager in the world, has worked with the players Chelsea have already, 2 of them, one of them being their best player, but he lacks the experience again. And good on him, actually. for not being shy about his lack of experience, and he's not concerned, reportedly, about the managerial carousel at Chelsea. And hey, if you were offered a job at Chelsea after managing one good season in the Championship, you take it. It's only the logical thing to do. And he's bald, so next year we'll have 4 bald managers of the big teams: Maresca, Guardiola, Ten Hag, and Slot. So only Postecoglou and Arteta of the big 6 have hair. So I guess if you can't beat Pep, you gotta be Pep. And Chelsea have reportedly studied Mikel Arteta with this appointment, because Arsenal took a huge risk with Arteta. Hasn't really gotten them to the heights they wanted, but Arteta is regardless seen as one of the best managers in the world right now. And Arteta hardly any experience either, because he was Pep's assistant for a few years.
Yeah, but you always knew he was headed to Arsenal just because of his connections there.
Yeah, and he was their captain, so that made sense. And it just feels like Igbali with Stanley and Stewart don't know what they want, because they gave Poch a 2-year contract with an option, and it was reported that they learned from Potter, 5-year contract, but then they gave Maresca a 5-year contract with an option for a 6th, apparently. And again, a massive, massive risk to give a manager, or head coach rather, with hardly any experience managing the top flight, which contradicts what they said, like, oh, we want a Premier League experienced manager. And they hire a guy who's had one good season in the Championship. And they're just, again, Maresca's going to be a yes man. He's not going to be like Poch or Tuchel or any manager before the ownership. They just want a guy to coach and cook with what they give him. So
that's the dangerous thing. I mean, there's the old saying that came from the NFL, right? If you expect him to cook, you got to let him buy the ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Chelsea doesn't allow managerial input into players at all.
Yeah, that's why Tuchel was sacked, and that's why Poch left.
Right? Like, I get it. You got a sporting director. You got someone that's in charge of recruitment. Let him go. But if you're not at least having the conversation of what does this guy need, and you're not hearing it from the person you put in charge to actually run that part of the show, Chelsea feels still very, very disjointed at the front office.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And because if Maresca fails, Stanley and Stewart should go with him.
Yeah.
Because they picked him, and they picked Poch, and he failed.
Yeah.
Because this ownership group, look, they got Tuchel, fired him after a few months. Then Potter only lasted 8 months. Saltor and Lampard interim spells. Though Saltor went undefeated. 1 game, though. And then Pochettino, and now Maresca. That's like 6 managers in 2 years. Which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm backing this guy. I hope that bald head of his and his tactics work with this club. Exactly what they need tactically. And he fits what the players he just fits the system. And a lot of Leicester people are saying, yeah, this guy's a good tactical mind. And I just hope he is given the time. Like, I mean, he has to progress. Like, we need to see progression, and he's given the time, his 5-year contract. And I hope he can, like, just bring the best out of pretty much the star players. Like, you can take Palmer to even greater heights, help Lavia to get settled into the team. Like, take Mark Cucurella's game to another level by inverting him. Who, by the way, Cucurella got called up for the Euros, which is good for him.
There you go.
And plays a very attractive style of football, and I can't wait to see what he does. And I hope people are saying, what if this guy's a Pep regen? Because he's bald or whatever. I hope he's something like that. Like, oh, Pep got his start. He had barely had any experience. Yeah, but he had prime Barcelona.
He
Zidane
also
barely had
grew
any
player to a second team, grew up in that second team, went to the first team, all within one club.
Yeah, and the same could be said about Zinedine Zidane. He had Ronaldo, right. Bale, Benzema. So don't compare Maresca to that's what I've seen.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange one.
And Arteta makes sense for the. We'll see how he does.
Yeah.
So for Tottenham, former Chelsea man Timo Werner is set to stay at Spurs, and honestly, good for him. He's not been bad. He's not been great, I think, but he fits Postecoglou's system.
You know what? When he came over, he did I would say he did better than expectations. So he's set to remain.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah, he's still on loan, but the loan is now going to be for the entirety of the next year's season. Spurs are going to pay the wages. There's still a buy option in place. It's going to be about 15, 16 million euros. Timo Werner said that he wanted to stay. Like he really pushed for this. And I think the one thing that kind of clouds a little people is because he didn't play in the last 5 matches because he was injured. So it's tough to evaluate him for the entirety of the time he was here. You can only look at the time that he was playing, and his assist ratio and kind of what he did for what he was here for is better than most in the league. If he was able to keep it up. Now, the thing is he still needs the pieces involved to help him out. Spurs still say they're still looking for help on the wings. They've still said they need a striker. They need a striker. They need.
That's one thing both our clubs are common. We need strikers. Yeah.
Now, the one thing is also when you take a look at strikers is they do have a guy that's been waiting in the wings for years, and that's Troy Parrott. That guy. He's been out on loan time and time again, most recently with Excelsior in the Netherlands Eredivisie. Now, Excelsior had a horrible season. They finished 16th out of 18th. They're actually in a relegation playoff to see what happens with them. I'm not too sure if that's it or not. But for Troy Parrott, he actually did quite well with them. He played 25 matches, 18 of them were starts. He registered 10 goals and 4 assists, which is not bad, right? But I don't know if he's going to be the guy that going forward. They have to make a decision on him. I believe that he could technically leave on a free. If they are going to sign him, they need to give him assurances about his life with Spurs is going to be. He's 22 already, right? So you got to think with the number of times that he's been put out on loan, it's either send him to a team on a permanent where he can be the guy, or you start blending him into the squad. I don't know if he's going to be that guy because it does feel like Spurs are already looking elsewhere, like at a Dane Scarlett within their squad.
I think you best to let him go if he's not going to be the guy.
So I do think it's time to let him go. The other guy that I'm really excited for that Spurs did sign last year, but they kept on loan with his club, I believe in Sweden, is Lucas Bergvall. Take a look at what this guy can do. This guy is an absolute magician from the midfield. I see him being a part of not the starting 11, but he's a part of the first team squad next year. And he's young. I think he's only like 18, 19. So big guy, I want to say. Other than that, right now it's wait and see. I know they're still kicking the tires on a center back. They're not fully finished on what they want to do there. Ben Davies looks like he's going to be on his way out. An absolute trooper of a player. Been with the club for basically, it feels like a decade, and deserves a good sending off. You know, you've never the best, never the worst, always there, always consistent,
always gave his all, right?
Yeah. And that's Spurs right now. We're wait and see. They finished the weird friendly match they had against Newcastle in Melbourne, and so now they are actually truly on a break. hopefully they come back recharged and refreshed.
Sure. It's closer to home. Oh, not really, but Greenland has officially submitted to join CONCACAF.
Yeah, they have been trying for a number of years to join UEFA, but there's a number of roadblocks that are in there. One of the big things with Greenland is having a viable stadium. They do have a place because Greenland actually does have a league, but like out of all their teams, they kind of come in for a week and have all their games in a single place and then go back out. So they do have a place, but they are looking at joining. Greenland also changed, or UEFA changed their rules on membership when it comes to extraterritorial places. Greenland technically is kind of like a semi-autonomous region that is a part of Denmark. Mm-hmm. So while that also exists for, say, someone like the Faroe Islands, since UEFA changed the rules for new members, that does hurt new entrants like Greenland. So Greenland is now officially trying to apply to CONCACAF. It will be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, a big first step.
Imagine Canada is flying all the way to Greenland for a match.
I think it would be great. I do think that if they do join, you're going to see a lot of Greenland's matches happen like as the home nation, either in the United States or Canada, at least in the beginning. But you do hope that you get some beautiful nights in Greenland as well.
Yeah. So Harry Kane did win a trophy this season.
Yeah, but another personal one.
A 2023-24 European Golden Shoe winner because he scored more goals than anyone else.
Yep.
So that's something.
Records for Bayern Munich, broke records for the Bundesliga. Couldn't get Bayern Munich to a trophy.
Yeah. So Harry Kane just, again, the guys had poor luck with trying to win team trophies, but at least he has the golden shoe.
Yeah, there's that.
So, much to a surprise, Man United beat Man City in the FA Cup final, and I think it would be dumb for Ten Hag's job to be gone. It feels like his job.
Louis van Gaal.
Yeah, but it seems like the players and the fans want him to stay.
It does seem like he has the players. It does seem.
Yeah. It's even the way he celebrated with them after the final.
But in kind of a funny way is what this did to Chelsea.
Yeah, well, so that's as a result. Chelsea are playing in the Europa Conference League next season.
Yeah.
We're going to be playing against part-time plumbers from Albania or Kazakhstan or whatever, as they say. And at least Cole Palmer can stat pad. So that's that. And we'll try to win the Conference League next season and be the first team to win all 3 European trophies.
There you go. Pep Guardiola.
So that final, though.
Oh, yeah.
Man City looked hungover from celebrating their title for the first half because United were all over them.
Yeah.
Like Garnacho and knew.
Man United played a game that you
got called for
where was that all year?
Yeah, just this quick transition play. Obviously, City woke up in the second half, and Doku got them close, but not enough. And again, Haaland ghosting in big games. Like the guy scores like a ton of goals in the PL, and then when it comes to a final, ghosts.
Yeah, it's definitely something he has to think about.
Yeah, like the guy was in the pocket of Martinez and Varane and Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
And speaking of Man City, big news over the past few days. Pep Guardiola, the Man City at the end of next season.
Right on time to get away with all the pending charges that might be coming Man City's way.
115 charges, and interesting to see. And
well, the question there's 2 questions. Where does Pep go next? Does he take an extended break? Does he look and really, really kind of rewrite the script and do something crazy? And who comes to Man City? Does Man City go after Arteta? Because of the number of years Arteta was there as Pep's assistant, and it's someone they know. What's the trickle-down effect for that?
I don't kind of doubt that since Arteta has been really loyal to Arsenal. Unless,
back a Brinks truck up to him, his mind might be changed.
Yeah. And much to the celebration of many people on football Twitter saying that the Farmers League era could come to an end. But, knowing Man City, they're spending. They're going to go after a top manager to replace Pep.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Look at whoever's number one at the time and, give them a blank check. That will then, be redistributed through a sponsor.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And more managerial talk. More managerial talk. So Vincent Kompany is officially the next Bayern Munich manager. If you thought Enzo Maresca from Leicester to Chelsea was weird, this is even weirder, as we talked about last week.
This is like when you're 20 years into a football manager game and the managerial appointments start getting a little bit strange.
Yeah, these managerial signings, they're like, at a company, a guy who just out of university, working entry-level, low-paid job, gets to be vice president after like 6 months. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think German football is going to be interesting over the next 5 years.
Yeah. People think, oh, maybe this is the Bayern Munich downfall.
I don't think.
I mean, they still have a good team.
If it is, we're not going to fully realize it for another 5 years because it's going to be a slow. If it's a downfall, it's not going to be a fast one.
Yeah.
Also, in order for that downfall to happen, you need other teams than just Bayern Leverkusen to step up. You need other teams
like a Dortmund, Leipzig, and all that.
You need those teams to fight for that spot.
But just to see how Kompany does with that squad.
Yeah.
With Harry Kane, because again,
Alphonso Davies,
if he stays there,
yeah.
And former Bayern Munich manager Hans Flick is the new Barcelona manager after Xavi got the sack.
Did you hear Xavi's comments afterwards? He's like, "Whoever's the next manager is going to suffer."
Yeah, and Xavi's remember a few months ago said he was leaving, and then he changed his mind, and then they sacked him anyway.
I don't understand Barcelona. I don't understand more than any club. Like I don't understand Chelsea's thinking on the best of days. Barcelona believes that they are the biggest thing in the world, but the biggest thing in the world is
they're not. Yeah, which they're still recovering from, by the way.
Yeah, it's still right. So
and Xavi has stated that he's loyal to Barcelona. He will all come back as a fan.
Yep.
We're just to see where he goes next. If he chooses to go somewhere, but it looks like he'll take a break.
I could see taking a break. I think he might need a break after that. That's a little bit of whiplash.
Maybe he'll do what Pep did and do a sabbatical over a few years before taking another job.
And before we leave, we should mention, I think it's coming up at 2:00 our time, is going to be the draw for the next round of the Canadian Championship.
Yep. We just need to see that. Today. I think the podcast will be up around that time, more or less.
Yeah.
So we'll see who the Whitecaps are playing in the semifinals.
Absolutely.
So that concludes this week's episode. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Follow me on Twitter, JoshuaRay00. Nathan is at Enduric. Podcast is at Terminal City FC. Check out all our writings for Area 51 Sports Network. And as we continue to cover the Whitecaps and soccer, we'll obviously cover Copa, maybe some Euro coverage as well.
Absolutely.
And the women at the Olympics. And I promise to do more CPL coverage, but I don't really have the time right now. But this summer, I'll get to it. So check out Nathan's article on the Northern Super League. He pretty much breaks it all down for you.
We'll have more as we get news about what's going to happen with that league as well.
Yep. And see the team names for Montreal and Ottawa. Yeah, and thanks for everyone for joining us live. And again, hello to everyone listening on the podcast audio form. So that concludes this week's episode. Peace out.
Take care.